Galatians 5:12 reads this way, I wish those who unsettle you would emasculate themselves. That's a strong statement. And well, it's in the Bible, so we need to discuss it. When I was in the Army, we went on a field exercise in Bavaria. One of my jobs as the battalion maintenance officer was to follow the convoy with my maintenance team and repair anything that broke down during a road march. It was about an 8-hour march. Along the way, we came across one of Alpha Company's Jeeps stalled on the side of the road. I stopped, and the Jeep's operator had no clue what was wrong. As we were diagnosing the problem, the Jeep suddenly started, and they took off. But a little further down the road, they broke down again. And we repeated this same scene several times before arriving at the maneuver area. At the maneuver area, my motor sergeant investigated and discovered that the Jeep had a clogged gas strainer in the fuel tank. He found that someone had washed their paintbrush from painting their Jeep in the gas tank. The paint had clogged up the fuel strainer in the tank, which caused the problem. The comment that came to mind was this: Jeeps are not designed to run on paint. Of course, this statement was an exaggeration to make a point. And often we communicate things using hyperbole, which refers to an extravagant exaggeration in order to make a serious point. I believe that is why Paul wrote these concluding words regarding the Judaizers' teaching regarding circumcision. It was to bring a strong, memorable point to the Galatians. I'll read it again. I wish those who unsettle you would emasculate themselves. The Greek rendering of this phrase is quite graphic. The verb translated emasculate themselves literally means to amputate, to mutilate, to cut off. And when I read this statement in the context of the biblical times in which they were written, several thoughts come to mind. While we do not know for certain, the Galatians may have considered these same things. First, many pagan worship practices involved bodily mutilation, that is, the cutting of oneself as a form of devotion to their God. With this association, we realize that circumcision is not wrong in itself, but that just as the rituals of pagan religion, such as self-mutilation, were empty without any spiritual effectiveness, circumcision did nothing to gain God's approval. Similarly, in certain pagan religious practices, the priest would practice castration as a form of self-devotion to their God. This is the hyperbole of Paul's writing here. The NIV amplifies the verse to capture Paul's intent by saying, I wish they would go the whole way and emasculate themselves. The second thought that we have is that if circumcision made them approved by God, then going further to the point of castration would have gained them even greater approval. Yet this practice would accomplish nothing except to prevent them from being able to produce human life. In other words, they couldn't reproduce. The third thought is that by going the whole way to castration, one cannot physically reproduce life. Thus, the Judaizers, by going the whole way, it represented metaphorically that they would be unable to reproduce their false doctrine in the lives of others. Those three thoughts. And then why we do not know or understand what principles the Galatians may have understood from this particular statement, we do know this one thing. The Galatians who read this verse would have understood Paul's heart's intensity in confronting the Judaizers' false teaching. It is likely a picture that they would never forget. They would not forget that our justification, our salvation, does not come by works of the flesh. Our approval before God is a work of His grace through faith in Jesus Christ alone.